Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. It's 10 o'clock and we have a packed agenda, so let's get started. Welcome. My name is Desmond Gardner from EIB Advisory Team, and I will be moderating today's event together with my colleague Francisca de Novaes e Silva. Hello, Francisca.
Hello, Desmond, and good morning, everybody. We are very pleased to welcome you to the Fee Compass webinar on the topic of visibility and communication for financial instruments under EU shared management funds. This is the first time we have dedicated an event to this topic, and we are happy to see so many people have joined the event.
Yes, today's event is being presented by Fee Compass in association with the Inform EU network of the European Commission. And we will say a little bit more about both platforms in a few minutes. And we're very pleased to welcome members of that network to today's event. Before we get into the session, just a couple of housekeeping points to make. We're using the WebEx conference function, and this means that you are not able to unmute your microphone because we have so many people connected. It's not possible for everybody to be able to speak. However, we do want you to ask questions during the event, so the chat function is open, and we invite you to use that to raise any questions that you may have as you go along, and we will try and refer to that when we get to the Q&A section of each session. Also, the webinar is being recorded, and we will publish both the slides and the recording of today's event on the Fee Compass website in the next few days, so that people can access the information as and when they want to. Okay, so the event is really in two parts today. Could we have the next slide, please? Thanks. Initially, we're going to cover the topic of visibility, and we will have presentations from the European Commission from DG Région on the legal requirements under the Common Provisions Regulation for visibility and communication specific to financial instruments, what they are, why they're important, how they're coordinated, and how they should be reported in the context of the audit methodology. Then in the second part, from 11 o'clock onwards, we're going to move into more of the broader topic of communication and have two presentations showcasing best practices in communicating and carrying out visibility activities for financial instruments under EU shared management funds. Very pleased to have contributions both from the Foster financial instrument in the Occitanie region of France, and also colleagues from the Latvian Development Finance Institution, ALTUM, who will tap into their fit-for-the-purpose approach when promoting the diverse portfolio of financial instruments. We will have short Q&A sessions at the end of each sessions, and then at the end of today's event, hopefully we will have time for some further questions at the end. Okay, so I would now like to give the floor to Jonathan Dennis, the Head of Unit at DG Région B3, Financial Instruments and International Financial Institutions Relations at the European Commission, who will open the webinar with a welcome speech. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Desmond, and good morning, everybody. FI Compass is a joint effort between the European Commission and the European Investment Bank, and it offers advice on how to manage financial instruments under the shared management programs, EIDF, Cohesion Fund, and so on, across the Union. One of the things that we try to do with FI Compass is to respond to demand, and respond to the concerns and the interests of the financial instruments community. And today's webinar, we had over 600 registrations, which is the second highest ever for an FI Compass webinar. And we already have over 330 people attending this webinar. So clearly, this is a subject of interest. Visibility and communication is something that is is very important, but sometimes a little bit forgotten by people who have many other things to think about. But the visibility and the communication of the efforts of managing authorities to implement EU shared management funds is very important to provide citizens with information on what European money is being spent on. So I'm very pleased to welcome both the FI Compass network and the Inform EU network of communicators to this morning's webinar. It is 2 hours. We have a very dense program ahead of us with lots of content on communications, content on financial instruments, and content on audit requirements. So without further ado, I will wish you a very productive seminar. Welcome again, and I'll pass back to you, Des. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Jonathan. Yes. Okay. So first of all, let's just introduce our two networks to the people connected. I will say a few words about FI Compass, and then I'd be pleased to welcome Karin Persson-Svenningsson, Communication Officer from DG Regio's A2 team, the communication unit, who will present the Inform EU network. So if we can have the next slide, please, Gail. Thank you. So yes, just a little bit about FI Compass for those of you who are new to our platform. As John said, it's provided by the European Commission in partnership with the European Investment Bank. And I think at the heart of the platform really is our website. And you can see the address there, and there we've been running for 10 years now. So we have a wealth of material dating back to the sort of the start of the platform. And, you know, we have, in terms of what we can offer, we have fact sheets, such as the fact sheet you can see on the screen there about equity financial instruments, which really sort of go into detail about how these things work. We have a lot of case studies highlighting best practices. I think, you know, the best thing that we do on the platform, and I think most of our practitioners learn most things from their colleagues rather than necessarily directly from ourselves. We also have a podcast, the FI Compass Jam Sessions, which has, I think, provided some timely advice at times. And of course, we do events, both online events like today, but also we do larger conferences, including our flagship FI Campus event once a year, which I think people really value for the networking and sharing of experiences. So I would invite you all to visit our website. For those of you who are relatively new to financial instruments, we have a dedicated page on the site which explains some of the background to financial instruments and provides you signposts to relevant materials. So yes, hopefully you will explore that in the future, and we might see you at further events in the years to come. Okay, so that's I think a little bit about FI Compass. Maybe Karin, I can hand over to you now, and you could say a few words about the Inform EU network. Karin, the floor's yours.
Thank you, Desmond. Thank you for the welcome before. Now I see myself here on camera, so now everything's good. I will just briefly tell you about our Inform EU network of communicators, and according to the Common Provisions Regulation, the CPR, Article 48. Each member state shall identify a communication coordinator for visibility, transparency, and communication activities in relation to support from the funds, including programs under the European Territorial Cooperation Goals, so Interreg. And according to the same article, each managing authority shall identify a communication officer for each program, and this person may also be responsible for more than one program. And then finally, according to the same article, the Commission shall then maintain this network comprising of communication coordinators, communication officers, and Commission representatives to exchange information on visibility, transparency, and communication activities. So as a result, the communication unit in DG Regio has set up the Inform EU network, with the ultimate goal then to foster the expertise of the member states and regions in the field of EU communication, visibility, and transparency, while then establishing a platform between the Commission and the EU programs under shared management. And this network aims then to enhance the visibility of EU action at the national, the regional, and the local level through exchange of experiences and good practices in implementing information and communication measures, sorry, and also coordination of communication activities between the member states and the Commission. And finally, also assessment and discussions of strategies to increase the outreach and impact of communication activities. Sorry about that. The Inform network also, it encompasses all the CPR funds and also the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And then it's the communication unit in DG Regio that in collaboration with the other concerned DGs who work with the Inform EU network and the communication unit at DG Regio, we coordinate it. And currently we have around 1,000 members from all the member states. And membership is open to communication officers working on information and publicity issues in a managing authority or joint technical secretariat. And our main communication channel is we have a Teams group where we share invitations and informations. And we also have an extensive contact list where we send out emails with invitations to different events and sessions and also information. And let's see, so what do we organize then? The activities that we have each year. So first we have plenaries, which meets twice a year, and we have around 300 participants physically then. And we have a rotating system of co-hosts. So now in June, we'll be in Tallinn in Estonia, and in December, we'll be in Gdansk in Poland. And here the aim is to meet and to share knowledge, best practices, and to network. And the content of these plenaries, they are shaped to feed in directly to the work of the members. We also have an expert group, which meets once a year. During one of the two plenaries we meet. And this expert group, it consists of 27 designated communication officers. Communication coordinators. And then we also have Schengen associated countries and the Interact program who are invited as observers. And from the Commission side, it's DG Regio who is the secretariat, and all the concerned DGs also participate. And this expert group, it acts as a central steering and consultation body for all the communication matters linked to the legislation. And then the main tasks of the steering group is to establish coordination between the Commission and member states or stakeholders on the questions relating to the implementation of union legislation, programs and policies, and also to bring about an exchange of experience and good practice in the field of communication, visibility and transparency of EU funds under shared management. And then we also organize technical seminars or communication labs, as we like to call them. And these we have up to 3 times a year, with around 25 participants who meet physically. And these seminars then enable a more focused work on specific technical issues. We also have country team meetings, which are organized with each member states twice a year, during spring and during autumn. And there we have one meeting is online and one meeting is in person. And these meetings then create an opportunity to discuss implementation topics in a more informal setting. And then finally, we have online training sessions where the communication unit in DG Regio organizes 2 to 3 training sessions per month to improve the knowledge and skills on communication related matters. But here we're also open to suggestions for other topics, for example, the non-financial instruments, if this would be requested. And we're quite flexible with adding topics to our training sessions agenda. So these sessions, they're recorded, they're online and recorded, and they're quite popular. So last year we had 15 sessions in total with over 1,500 participants. And then we had over 1,000 persons then checking the recordings afterwards. So this is a brief presentation of the Inform EU network. And if you would like to know more about it, please contact us and then we'll inform you accordingly. Thank you. This is from me. This one, I think I'll hand over to you. Or
Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you.
And thank you all for supporting today's event once again. I would now like to introduce the speakers to our first session, which will delve into the importance and the legal requirements for visibility and communication activities as established in the Common Provisions Regulation for the 2021-2027 programming period, with focus on financial instruments and on how these shall be monitored and controlled. And moving to introductions, I'm very pleased to have with us today, presenting this session, Natalie Van Eck, a policy assistant at DG Regio B3, the Financial Instruments and International Financial Institutions Relations Unit at the European Commission. Once again, Karin Persson-Svenningsen, Communication Officer at DG Regio A2, the Communication Unit at the European Commission, presenting the Inform EU network. And then we have Axel Badriciani, Head of Unit at DG Regio DAC, the Joint Audit Directorate at the European Commission, and Dana Grazianu, External Audit and Senior Expert on Financial Instruments at DG Regio DAC, as well at the European Commission. Natalie, may I ask you to start your presentation? Whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
Thank you, Franziska. Next slide, please. Welcome from my side as well. I am so happy to see that so many people are interested in this topic because we are exploring a bit of new ground here. Why are we here? Well, we want to explore how visibility and communication rules are being applied, and if there are questions and what kind of questions there are related to this topic. But we also want to inform you a bit both ways. So basically we have the two networks. This was mentioned already and became clear in the cross introduction. And we also want to broaden our field of network of connections to make financial instruments a bit more known and a bit more spread in terms of knowledge, what and how and why. And why? Well, actually, our tagline is do more with less. Financial instruments, we believe, are the answer to current and real questions that are happening or that are coming up now in this world that we live in right now, where there is a need for innovation in all sectors of the economy, innovation in technologies, in products, but also in legislation, in finance, ways to finance the innovations. We need innovative ways, and we need to think of out of the box and a bit out of the current and the existing mainstream systems. Because it's not just that we are living in a world of crisis and of need for innovation, but we are all faced, all levels of governments are faced with cuts and lower available funds and budgets. So we are having this reality, and we believe that financial instruments can provide an answer in these circumstances. And why do we believe this? Well, we can offer financial instruments can offer specific benefits in these in specific areas. We have a leverage effect. So financial instruments offer the possibility to attract private funding, other sources of funding. So basically, that's why we say do more with less. The financial instruments de-risks certain investments. I'm jumping a bit in the list of bullet points there, but financial instruments de-risk investments in high-risk sectors. They also they do this, and one of the effects and one of the benefits of that is that other parties and more sources of funding become available in these high-risk sectors. Financial instruments also have a revolving nature. So basically, they generate additional flows of money through repayments or through interest. So money that has been disbursed to final recipients will be repaid. So it can also be reused. That is why we say this revolving nature is one of the big benefits. You can do more with less. Investing in financially viable investments in sectors with an identified market or access to finance gap is also one of the strengths of financial instruments. where you will have, because of the nature of financial instruments, we're talking loans, I'm coming back to that in a bit later, we're talking loans, guarantees, and equity. Because of their characteristics, their nature of financial instruments, the financial discipline is bigger in the investments that are being that fall under that are being financed through financial instruments. The de-risking, I already said, it actually helps startups, innovation, SMEs to have better access to finance also. So all of these benefits are known, are proved, but we do believe that the good experiences that there are do not outnumber the untapped potential that there still is. So we do believe that there is still a big potential in certain sectors, in certain regions, for the use of financial instruments to have an impact on the economy and to have an impact on the lives of citizens. What we want to do today, it has been said already a few times, we want to share the knowledge, we want to exchange practices, we want to raise awareness also for people who might not be familiar with financial instruments. We want to say to show them that these benefits are real and are happening already, and that there is still potential there. And we believe that visibility and communication is also very important to market these financial products, because of course you have to make sure that your final recipients, SMEs, housing associations and so on, that they know that these financial products are there for them, and that they have certain benefits, lower interest rates, easier access, lower collateral necessary, and so on. The business angels that come with equity investments and all of that. So we need to market these benefits and these characteristics to the financial recipients to have the biggest possible impact, because that is what we actually want. We want to have financial instruments to impact the economy and the final recipients in the best way possible. Next slide, please. So financial instruments in cohesion policy context, they are a delivery mode. So we call them a form of support for cohesion policy objectives. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with these objectives. So think about the green transition, think about SME investments and so on. They help trigger investments, maximizing private investments with minimum public support. So again, do more with less. They represent a very efficient and sustainable alternative to the traditional grants-based support. So this is why we also say that there is still untapped potential. We do believe that member states tend to go to grant support because they are familiar with it. However, experience do show that when member states and managing authority set up financial instruments, they are usually very enthusiastic about the benefits that they offer, and they actually continue implementing these instruments even across finance programming periods. We think that financial instruments should also be chosen as a rule when investments are income generating or cost saving. So basically, when you have a project that will generate income or that will save costs, think energy efficiency, for example, we do believe that financial instruments have more benefits for both managing authority and financial recipients, and also financial intermediaries, of course, to help these, or to be the form of support that is chosen in these cases. Next slide, please. Just very short, because I do say that the impact in numbers, the impact is real and proven. So I do love my numbers, but very short. In 2014-2020 period, we had a leverage of almost 4, where 17 billion of euros of ESIF contributions led to 62 billion financing mobilized. So this is the leverage effect. The do more with less, where you attract extra investments, and this is actually based on real reporting of member states. This is a number that has been established. It's not the final number for this period yet, because as you all probably know, closure is only for the end of February next year, so it might even increase. We have supported 771,000 final recipients, of which over 600,000 SMEs and 500,000 micro enterprises there. In the current programming periods, we have already 15 billion committed to FIs through funding agreements. This means that these agreements have already been signed between managing authorities and bodies implementing financial instruments. And 1.5 billion has been paid to final recipients already and counting. Of course, we are only starting the period and the implementation, so we expect these numbers to increase over the coming months and years. Next slide, please. And this is just for the benefit of those who are among you, because we do realize that we have a mixed audience today. Those of you who are not familiar with the terminology and the setup of a financial instrument, very simple and very basic. This is the setup, how it works. So we have the programs negotiated between Commission and Managing Authority, where Managing Authority then implements these programs and the funds. For a financial instrument, there are basically two possible setups. One is with a holding fund, where the Managing Authority selects a holding fund that then distributes the funds to specific funds, multiple specific funds, and these specific funds then make sure that the financial products are being disbursed to financial recipients. Another setup is that the Managing Authority selects the specific funds themselves, and then these specific funds again disperse to final recipients. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see a bit of terminology. So basically financial instruments, the shared management funds, the Managing Authority. The beneficiary, it's a bit different in the case of financial instruments. For grants, the beneficiary is the one who receives the grants. For a financial instrument, the beneficiary is the body that implements the financial instrument or the holding fund. So basically it is either the holding fund or the specific fund in case there is no holding fund. The final recipient is the natural or legal person that receives the financial support. So as we said already, think SMEs, think housing associations, even natural persons that receive a loan, microloans, and so on. Financial intermediary is the one who deploys these financial resources. So basically these are banks, national promotional banks, or in case of specific funds, also commercial banks. The holding fund is, well, you can read what the description that is in the definition that is in the CPR. So this is basically the fund that manages the financial instrument and then selects specific funds to then further disperse. Specific fund is the fund that has the direct relationship with final recipients and financial products. Think loans, guarantees, think equity, so participation in companies and so on. This is very basic, very simple way explained how financial instruments or what they look like, and I think my part for now is complete. So Franziska, back to you.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. And now we move on to Karin's presentation. Karin, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, Franziska. So now I'll just very briefly just guide you through the requirements here. So as already mentioned, communication is an important part of the implementation of the funds in the CPR. And again, the communication provisions aim at strengthening the transparency, visibility, and communication of the EU funding. And the regulation lays down communication requirements for member states, managing authorities, and also project beneficiaries. So these are laid down specifically in Articles 46 to 50 and in Annex 9, but for the sake of this presentation, we focus on Articles 47, 49, and 50. So to start with then, firstly, all stakeholders, they're required to use the union emblem and the funding statement in the communication activities and materials. And it must be displayed prominently and correctly, and in combination with a simple funding statement that mentions the EU support. And we have on DG Regio's webpage, we have a download center for visual elements where beneficiaries can download ready-to-use EU funding statements to comply with these visibility requirements. And the EU emblem and funding statement can also be downloaded in all the EU languages and also in 14 non-EU languages. And then secondly, when we come to the managing authorities, they're responsible for setting up a program website. And here they should offer information about the program's objectives, the activities, and available funding opportunities and achievements. And they should also add then, they should also publish a timetable of planned call for proposals, which should be updated at least three times a year. And then they should also publish a list of operations selected for support by the fund or the funds. And this should be updated at least every 4 months. And then thirdly, when we come to the project beneficiaries, and they're responsible to acknowledging support on the beneficiary's official website and on a social media website with a short description of the operation, including its aims and results, and also highlighting the financial support from the union. And they should also display a poster of a minimum size of A3 or equivalent electronic display at a location that's clearly visible to the public and with also information about the operation and support. And finally, they should set up a durable plaque or billboard on infrastructure program sites, project sites when the total costs exceeds 500,000 euros for ERDF and CF and 100,000 euros for ESF Plus, JTF, MFAF, ISF, AMIF, BMVI, and Interreg. This you could take further on the website then. But then here also DG Regio has created an online generator for beneficiaries of cohesion policy and the RRF to create these billboards, plaques, and posters in a few easy steps. So as said, this can be checked then on our webpage where everything is clearly indicated. And yes, this is it for me for this slide. Thank you. Back to you, Franziska, right?
Thank you very much, Catherine, indeed. Thank you. And once again, Natalie, you have the floor.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Yes. So for financial instruments, visibility requirements and communication requirements under the CPR stem from the same article. So this Article 50. So the requirements are not all that different. It is just, I think, a bit specific in terms of the level of stakeholder where they are applied. So basically, Article 50 speaks of beneficiaries and bodies implementing financial instruments. So this means that these requirements are required at the level of the financial intermediary, so the body implementing financial instruments. And of this article, paragraphs A, B, and D are, well, actually, first sentence of paragraph D are applicable. These correspond to what Karin explained, to provide a description, the aim, the results, to highlight the financial support from the union, to provide a statement in a visible manner intended for the public and participants, and to display a poster and or an electronic display. Article 50, paragraph 3, then says more about the consequences if a beneficiary does not comply with these obligations. Next slide, please. In terms of visibility requirements for final recipients, also these stem from Article 50, where the sentence or the paragraph 51C has to be read together with Article 50, paragraph 2. And this one is, this combination is applicable to final recipients. So, but yes, only when the threshold is reached where the total cost of the investment is higher than 500,000. In that case, final recipients should display durable plaques and billboards clearly visible as soon as a physical investment starts or a purchased equipment is installed. This obligation should be determined and should be materialized by way of contractual terms. So bodies implementing the financial instruments should, for example, in the loan agreements with final recipients, they should ensure that these stipulations are in these agreements. And in case of a breach of these obligations, then contractual terms should apply to final recipients. Some extra information. So support to working capital is outside the scope of this provision, where there is no physical investment or no purchase of equipment or tangible assets. And there is guidelines on operations for recipients of EU funding. So they can use the standard visibility tools provided by the Commission. So the tools that Karin was mentioning, the generators that are available on the sites, they can also be used by final recipients. I think the colleagues of the Audit Directorate will go into the details a bit more for these, and especially also on how these will be controlled and monitored. Franziska, back to you.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. And just a reminder to you all, we will have a quick Q&A session at the end of the session. So please feel free to send in your questions. We encourage you to send in any question you may have on the presentation via the WebEx chat function. And now we move on to the last presentation of this session. Axel and Anna, the floor is yours, please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. We have only 3 slides to present. We don't see it as a very complicated audit work to audit publicity requirements for financial instruments. It would rather be one of the easiest parts because the article in the regulation is quite clear. It was presented by Nathalie just before. And when we do our audits, we look at I would say at 2 levels. We look at what the bodies implementing financial instruments are doing, and also we want to see how what is done or what is put in place as a measure to ensure that final recipients are complying with with the requirements. I will start with the bodies implementing financial instruments. So when we go, we will look when we audit, and we expect our audit authority to do the same. We will look at what the website of the beneficiary, what do they have, and if they communicate on social media. So this is one of the elements. It's quite easy to do, looking at the website, beneficiary's official website, to ensure that indeed there is a short description of the operation. We would also look at the communication material that they are using, and there we expect to see a statement highlighting the union support. I must admit that when we do audits, we didn't really, this is usually respected, these 2 elements, so we were not discovering big issues there. Then there are other requirements in case the operation is considered to be of strategic importance, above a certain value, and there would be a need to have communication events on a regular basis. I think annually it is indicated in the article. So this would be it at bodies implementing financial instrument. To summarize, it's quite an easy task to verify, and if the bodies are well informed about the requirements. Usually this is well done by the bodies implementing financial instrument. Dana, for financial recipient.
Next slide, please. Yes, thank you, Axel. Like Axel has explained, we have these two levels. First, the financial intermediaries, and then the final recipients. Now, regarding the final recipients, I would like first to underline that the CPR for 21-27 includes some novelties at the level of final recipients in terms of visibility rules. Before, in the previous CPR for 14-20, there were no such requirements on visibility at final recipients level, contrary to the new CPR. So, there is only one article, like Natalie has explained, only one article that applies to the final recipients, namely Article 50, Paragraph 1C. So as auditors, when we will go to check the financial instruments, we will not go to visit the final recipients. That's one principle, one general rule that applies for audits under the CPR rules, audits of financial instruments. So the verifications will be performed at the level of bodies implementing of financial instruments, meaning either the body implementing a holding fund or the body implementing a specific fund. So what we are going to check is whether the requirements in Article 52 have been met. So what that would mean, we will check whether in the contractual arrangements, so in the contract, for example, in the loan contract between the body implementing a financial instrument and the final recipient, there are the necessary provisions required by Article 51C in the CPR. So, for example, if the conditions in Article 51C are met, meaning that we are talking about an operation above 500,000 euro and an operation that involves physical investments or installation of purchased equipment. So when these conditions are met, then we as auditors, we will check whether in the contractual arrangements there are specific provisions indicating the obligation for the final recipients, for example, to have a durable plaque or a billboard in place visible to the public. Now, what we'd like also to underline here that is very important, the principle of substance over form, in the sense that the proportion of the physical investment in the total investment is important. So when calculating the ceiling of 500,000 euro, the total cost of the operation, the total cost of the investment, meaning the amount that will be set out in the contract agreement, it can be ERDF funds, can be national program funds, can be non-program resources. So everything, the total cost of the operation will be included. There was a question whether, for example, in case of combination of working capital and equipment, what would be included in this calculation. So everything will be included. Everything that is part of the operation should be included in the calculation in order to see whether the ceiling of 500,000 euro is exceeded or not. So coming back to this principle of substance over form, what is important is to see how much also the investment, the physical investment, represents out of the total cost of the operation. Because, for example, if the physical investment represents just 10%, then probably the requirements should not be to expect from the final recipient to install a billboard. visible to the public. So, and this proportionality, this substance of a firm principle has to be reflected in the contractual arrangements that are agreed between the body implementing the financial instruments and the final recipients. There is also the situation when this contract is concluded, it's not clear what the investment will be. Or the proportion of the investment. And in that case, what we recommend that the contractual arrangements with the final recipient include a clause that the final recipient is informing the body implementing the financial instrument about the physical investment, the nature of the investment, so notably in case there will be a physical investment or a purchase of the equipment, in particular when the ceiling is exceeded. So we recommend this, and we as auditors will look for this clause in these contractual arrangements. So basically, to conclude, the audit work will be limited to the contractual arrangement. We will not go on the spot to see how the final recipient really implemented these requirements. And last but not least, so these provisions do not apply to working capital and acquisition of intangible assets. But this, I think it's obvious because, as I mentioned, only the Article 51C is applicable to final recipients in corroboration with Article 52, of course. Meaning that only in case we have physical investments or a purchase of equipment. Next slide, please. So we have seen what the auditors will verify when it comes to visibility rules at the level of bodies implementing a financial instrument or at the level of final recipients. Now, this slide is to emphasize a bit what could be the implications in case these rules are not met. And now it all depends a bit on the audit verifications that we are going to perform and the level at which we as auditors, as commission auditors, we are going to check. Because you might know that the commission auditors can go perform verifications at different levels. And at all these levels, meaning, for example, we will go to check the audit authorities' work. So how the auditors in the member states have verified the implementation of visibility of financial instruments. We can go also to check the management verifications performed by the managing authority regarding the visibility rules for financial instruments. But we can also go to check the bodies implementing the financial instruments. As mentioned before by our colleagues, these bodies implementing the financial instruments represent the beneficiaries for us. So we will go at their level to check these requirements. So we will be interested to different aspects in respect of the audit trail on visibility that this either the audit authority or managing authority or the bodies implementing the financial instruments would ensure. Now, what can be an incompliance and what can be the consequences? For example, at MA level, an incompliance can be that we'll find out that there is no provision regarding the visibility rules stipulated in the contract between MA and the body implementing the financial instrument. Or we will find out that MA, through their management verifications, have not ensured that the visibility obligations have been cascaded down at the level of bodies implementing the financial instruments. So cascaded down, meaning at the level of body implementing the holding fund, or even further down at the level of bodies implementing the specific fund, because there will be a contract between MA and the body implementing a holding fund, then another contract between the body implementing a holding fund and the body implementing a specific fund, and then the third contract between the body implementing a specific fund and the final recipient. And the MA has also the obligation to check whether in terms of contractual arrangements, the visibility obligations are stipulated at all levels. So in case we as auditors will find out that the contractual arrangements do not include such obligations in terms of visibility, then we'll most likely issue a system finding. So a recommendation that MA should improve the system. Then there can be also incompliances that the auditors will observe at the level of the bodies implementing the holding fund or the body implementing a specific fund. And that can be at two levels. First, the first level is the obligation of the body implementing a financial instrument itself. So as Axel explained, the articles 51A and B apply directly to these bodies. We have also the D and C, but when there is an obligation in the CPR regarding these bodies, so the visibility rules have to be observed at the level of these bodies, and the auditors and also the MA can come and check these obligations. And then in case these obligations are not fulfilled, for example, if there was no visibility on the official website or on social media sites, or there was no statement, no document, no communication document informing about the amount that has been paid from the EU budget, then there will be a breach of the contractual arrangements and can have consequences according to Article 53 of the CPR. And there is also the second level of obligations that apply to at the level of bodies implementing the financial instrument. So in corroboration with Article 52, for the final recipients. So the requirement that the final recipients have to observe some feasibility rules apply to final recipients, but through the bodies implementing the financial instruments. So according to Article 52 in the CPR, the bodies implementing the financial instruments have the obligation to include such provisions in the contract with the final recipients. So it is their obligation. They are ultimately accountable for these requirements. So what the auditors will do will check whether these provisions were included by the bodies implementing the financial instruments in the contract with the final recipients. The provisions we are referring here about the provisions on visibility that apply to final recipients. And now, in all situations, in case there is a breach of the contractual arrangements, there can be a reduction in the amount of support, up to 3%. And this can be applied by MA, can be applied also by the auditors. But to say that the CPR includes provisions to say that only if the remedial actions have not been taken, only then this, let's say, net correction will apply. So first, we will not go first for a correction, but we will ask first for remedial actions. And if the remedial actions have not been implemented, then there is a risk indeed of this applying this net correction of up to 3%. Of course, taking into account the proportionality principle. Thank you very much.
If I may add something, when we audit, we are not only looking at one element. So we don't do an audit to check publicity requirements. We audit a financial instrument. We will look into the funding agreements, and we will see that all the requirements are cascaded down to the appropriate level. And then if we see that this is done, publicity requirements, but also the fact that the banks will have to select eligible final recipients, eligible SMEs. Of course, this is put in a funding agreement, these obligations. So this is what we are looking at. And in this context, we look also at what is done for publicity. So for us, it's not a big thing because it's easy. It's part of our audit scope. And you can see our audit methodology. I think it is published on the FICompass website. You can exactly see what checklist we are using when we do our controls. And okay, it's part of the overall context of the overall scope. We audit. We'll see also what is done for publicity. And it is not too complicated. In case of what is important is that in terms of operationalizing these requirements, this is done in an easy way for final recipient. And I think you will have practitioners a bit later. I think we have EIF also presenting something. They will show you how this is done and how they have managed to cascade down all these requirements and how this is translated into the loan agreements, for example, that will be with final recipient. Thank you.
Axel, Dana, thank you very much. Now it's time to move to our Q&A. Desmond, are there any questions on the chat?
Yeah, hi, Francisco. Yeah, there's lots of questions. There's a debate about beneficiary, but I think I will leave that and maybe start with the first few questions where people are asking about what the size of the total cost of the investment is. So there's a few questions maybe, which is, I'll just run through them. Which amount of aid should be included in the plaque in case of a guarantee with interest rate subsidy? Then somebody's also then asked them, but what about a mix of working capital and equipment? So maybe the panel can just answer those questions about the cost of investment.
I think for the working capital, the combination of working capital and equipment, I have already addressed this during my presentation. So as I have mentioned, the total amount has to be included because we are talking about the total amount of the operation that is included in the total cost of the investment. So you can have there even a personal cost, so not only equipment, we can have everything there. So yeah, everything has to be included.
And it is simpler. Huh? No need to spend too much time to try to identify exactly what is the correct amount of the investment. So it's better to have something which is very operationalized and implementable. It has to be easy for final recipient to understand what they have to do. There is one article which applies, okay, 51C for final recipient. It has to be made clear and not to have kind of debate to try to understand what they need to comply with. They will not understand final recipient. It has to come from a cascade down and explain to them. If there are examples of billboards, it's better if it is provided to them so they know what they need to put. If a final recipient has to start to reflect himself, understand the regulation, it will be too complicated. It has to be easy, easy, easy. Yeah.
And regarding the guarantees, so in that case, the underlying loan has to be included in the calculation for observing this threshold.
Thank you very much, Dana and Axel. And as one last question, we have one that is, what about company premises that are not clearly visible to the public? What to do then?
Well, no, normally, I had also this question, not only for financial instrument, also in case of grants when we audit. There is always a place which is visible when you have people coming to visit your premises. So maybe it will not be, we understand that sometimes we are supporting a factory and it's a warehouse or whatever, but there is always a place where you have public coming, or you have a meeting room where you have where you host people visiting your factory. So there is always a place. So if there is a willingness, the final recipient will find it. If we find it, because we saw cases like this where you have a billboard which is put in the basement where you go, I don't know, you have to throw towards the dustbin. No, this is not the best place. I think there is common sense to be applied, and I expect that if it is made clear to the final recipients, I don't expect difficulties from their side. They will put, if they exactly know what is the type of billboards or plaques they have to install, they will install it without any difficulties.
And now here also we are talking about investments that are above 500,000 euro. So just based on that, we presume these beneficiaries are not very small beneficiaries. So there are beneficiaries that have a certain capacity that can implement projects, operations that are above 500,000 euro. And in terms of financial intermediaries, I don't think it is a question, because in general, if we are talking about a bank by definition will have access to public. So,
thank you very much, Anne and Axel, and thank you everybody for your questions. We now need to move on to the next session, and I will hand over to my colleague Desmond Garner for introducing.
Thank you, Francisca. Yes, and I can see there's a healthy discussion still going on in the chat about what should be shown exactly on the plaque, and maybe we have time to come back to that at the end of today's session as well. But let's move on now and move to the second part, where we're going to really highlight some examples of best practice. In 20 or so minutes, we will hear from colleagues in Latvia and ALTUM, but first we want to really highlight the financial instruments in the Occitanie region of France, which have the name Foster. I'm very pleased to introduce Cécile Travaux, the Financial Engineering Project Manager of La Région Occitanie, Pyrénées, Méditerranée, and my colleague from EIF, Aubin Bonnet, the Head of Unit in the Mandate Origination and Relationship Management at the European Investment Fund. So Aubin, I will hand over to you first, and then you will hand on to Cécile later. Aubin, I think the floor is yours.
No, thank you very much, Desmond. Thank you very much, colleagues from DG Région. So good morning to all. So my name is Aubin Bonnet. I've been working for the European Investment Fund for a couple of years now, since 2009-10, I think. I'm covering Luxembourg, Belgium, and we have developed also this decentralized financial instrument platform with many French regions. So from Grand Est to Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, we have also in the portfolio Nouvelle-Aquitaine, Normandy, l'île de la Réunion, and this is the topic of today. We have worked very closely with Région Occitanie, a region in the south of France with a GDP of around 200 billion euro. Is a third generation of mandate that we are developed with this region. So they have entrusted again the EIF as a holding fund manager. I think because of the success of the two previous basically mandate that we have developed together. On the two previous mandates, we have supported more than 1.2 billion euro of loan only in that region for a catalytic effect of 2.7 billion, and we have supported roughly 8,000 SMEs. We have been audited 322 times as well, just into a bracket. This new holding fund, so is a holding fund of 103 million euro, as you can see in this slide, is separate block of finance, of course, with a region on resources, ERDF resources, and another mandate dedicated to the agricultural sector. But in terms of visibility and the communication is exactly the same article of in the CPR. So we have developed three underlying financial instruments. One is a guarantee to support SMEs competitiveness and innovation. Another one is a loan to support a very innovative SMEs in that region. and eventually a guaranteed type of instrument to support specifically the agricultural sector. So with 100 million euro, we expect to finance approximately 901 billion euro in this region. So this is a strong willingness of the region to ensure additionality and the leverage. We have selected in a competitive way. I say in a competitive way because the transfer of benefit is significant this time, a bit better than previously in terms of transfer of benefit. So basically, we encourage strongly, and it's not we encourage, it's an eligibility criteria that the intermediaries have to support SMEs at very good condition in terms of interest rate reduction, minimum 40 basis points, but also total and secure type of loan to be provided for the entrepreneur, so which give them a lot of benefit. So we have selected many intermediaries, not only Groupe PPCE, Banque Populaire and Caisse d'Épargne, but also two newcomers, Crédit Coopérative on one side, but also Crédit Agricole with 5 branches in this region. And for implementing, deploying the FRSP for innovative SMEs, we have selected one small boutique called Crealia, really focus on the innovation in that region. So if you want, I think, further information about all these two underlying instruments, I think FICOMPAS, my colleagues have prepared a booklet dedicated to these two instruments. Very interesting to read. The next slide, please. So the key novelties of this mandate is twofold. First of all, to ensure basically that, and this is one of the most significant basically novelties, is that every single project, including in the portfolio of new loan, must align as much as possible with at least one of the thematic objectives that we have defined in close collaboration with the region. So really, this includes, for instance, supporting SMEs that relocate his main activity in the region, and so on and so forth. So the 7 that I indicated in this slide. So this reflects the regional strong commitment to tracking the type of project funded and impact in the market. So the second, and this is the slide just after, please. The second key point was to increase the communication, because as indicated in introduction by you, Desmond, I think communication was a little bit forgotten. Even though we have supported 8,000 entrepreneurs previously, but we wanted to have a more robust communication and visibility. So I will leave the floor to Cécile, but is 4 types, and as it was indicated before, is really cascaded down to from the EIF, the holding fund manager, to the final recipient, the local entrepreneur. So how does it work? So within the website of the EIF, we have, for each single mandate that we have developed under this decentralized financial instrument platform for France, we have a dedicated pages describing the holding fund, but also going in the deep detail of the underlying financial instrument, because you can access to the call for expression of interest, so it's extremely detailed. So this is the first point. At the level of the intermediaries, here you have two possibilities. First of all, we ensure, and this is in the contractual agreement, operational agreement between us, the EIF, and the intermediaries, that every single intermediary selected at the branch level have to update the website, describing a bit product, the main feature of the product, and indicating that the fact that thanks to this product, the entrepreneur will get access, will get to facilitate access to finance at better condition, thanks to the EU ERDF or EFRD resources, and of course the regional resources. And as it was indicated before, in the loan agreement between the intermediary and the EIF, there is a dedicated annex where there is all the visibility requirement as indicated in the regulation. This is at the level of the intermediary, and after, when, as you mentioned previously, when the total investment amount exceed 500,000 euro, there is this obligation for the final recipient to display a durable and visible plaque in its premises. So this is a bit the approach that we have. I'm not going to speak more. I will leave the floor to my colleague, Cécile. You want to continue?
Thank you very much, Aubin. Good morning, everybody. Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So as you understand, for many years, the EIF and the Occitanie region are worked together on financial instruments. It all starts with the Jérémie initiative and then later expanded to Foster TPE-PME and now Foster Région Occitanie. At the time, Jérémie and Foster TPE-PME, banks were mainly responsible for publicity, and the region communication was more focused on European funds. But today, new challenges have emerged with the CPR regulation. One key issue for us is that Foster lacks visibility. Many companies are still unaware of the region actions through the program. Our goal is to change that, but by making Foster easily recognizable and widely known. With a target of 6,000 SMEs, the guarantee and loan system will reach a vast networks of entrepreneurs. So to achieve this, we must work closely with the key intermediaries to ensure our message is clearly conveyed. Foster is already a success and in high demand among banks, with a total of 10 regional banks plus one organization called Créalia. Everybody needs to be engaged, support, and also trained. And at the same time, the Occitanie region must ensure that its internal teams, those with in direct contact with entrepreneurs, as well as economic development networks like Chamber of Commerce, fully understand the program, its key objectives, and how it supports local SMEs. Next slide, please. So to boost visibility, we developed a comprehensive communication toolbox, which is accessible via the dedicated Foster website. This includes a new designed logo, a flyer, a stronger presence of social media. We also set up a technical mailbox to handle inquiries. Additionally, a video has been created and is available on the Foster website, as well on screens on the region's main building and in local agencies across the territory. Can you move to the video, please?
Vous êtes entrepreneur ou exploitant agricole, porteur de projets, gérant de petites ou moyennes entreprises et vous êtes installé en Occitanie? Pour vous, il y a Foster Région Occitanie, le financement simplifié qui fait grandir plus vite votre projet. Créé par l'Europe et la région Occitanie, Foster facilite le financement de vos projets grâce à deux solutions. Une garantie gratuite pour votre emprunt bancaire, un prêt à taux zéro pour vos projets innovants en phase de lancement. Ainsi, Foster Région Occitanie facilite votre accès au financement pour grandir vite en toute sécurité. Foster Région Occitanie, le plus de la région et l'Europe pour booster votre entreprise. Trouvez votre interlocuteur sur laregion.fr/Foster.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So as you see, the video talks directly to companies and SMEs. But we thought also that effective communication is key, both at first meeting with the bank and after the contract is signed. That's why each entrepreneur receives a communication guide, which is on the right, outlining publicity requirements, such as displaying information on their company website. So here is the poster we would like them to display in their offices. To reinforce this, we will send up following up notification to remind them of the regional support and visibility obligation. Next slide, please. And finally, we want our communication to be dynamic and interactive. With the support of the EIF, we organize live events, such as the launch event in Toulouse last June, company visits, and presentation during meetings with entrepreneurs. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Cécile and Aubin before you for a very interesting presentation. I know we don't have any specific questions in the chat at the moment for Cécile. So while they're coming in, perhaps Cécile, I can ask you the first question, which is you showed well on a slide that you have multiple stakeholders in relation, and that's a feature of financial instruments. And the region seems to be right at the heart of that. So how did you engage stakeholders in the region's communication plan in relation to this, Cécile?
Well, we decided to be very proactive with the communications activities. So we organized a dedicated meeting to clarify the regional communication plan, where the vice president in charge of economy of the Région Occitanie clearly explained what we are waiting for, both from the intermediaries and also the EIF, to meet our objectives. So in very concrete way, we managed to have a communication reference among the banks. So we can have 1 or 2% by bank, which who can relay communication on social media, and then come back to us with the article in the medias or in the press. And I think that while we require from them some obligation, but they are also happy to participate to companies' visits, because it's quite lively, and usually SMEs are very happy to show what investments they develop on the field. So it's all about proactivity, I think, and also really organizing meetings and so on.
No, thank you. And I noticed at the end of the video that you showed, which is really good, really attractive, you have a link to, I think, the region's own website for entrepreneurs. So how do you deal with entrepreneurs who then make that contact with the region? How do you put them in touch with potential financiers?
Well, we have we also trained our internal colleague and the colleague from the Economic Development Agency, ADOC, from the Région Occitanie, and we like everybody be happy talking about Foster Occitanie and its benefits for SMEs. So there is a QR code that is on the flyer. So when they meet companies, they can just give the flyer with the QR code, so SMEs can go on the website. Other thing that we try to talk every time about Foster Occitanie, and in meetings, like we have Matinale de l'économie all across the territory. So, well, we talk a lot about it.
Yeah, great. And maybe Oban, just a quick question to you. You mentioned EIF. You manage many funds, including many in different regions in France. It seems that here in Occitanie, the region is very much at the centre of the communication activities. Is that how? Is that? Do you encourage other regions to adopt that approach as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. We try to do to play our role at the EIF level to structure a good holding fund, the underlying instrument, to try to train as much as possible the intermediaries in terms of eligibility criteria, in terms of state aid, in terms of also in terms of visibility. But really, we try to replicate as much as possible the case of Région Occitanie. We did that very well also with Bourgogne-Franche-Comté or other region, where a bit the region take the lead on communication because they are on the ground. We are more working directly with the intermediaries. So yeah, we try to replicate this experience, and I think they did as well very well in other place. With the same approach to cascade down from the EIF to the final recipient with a strong commitment of the region, having their own website, explaining all these facilities, and not only, by the way, the financial instrument managed by the EIF, and they could also explain other type of financial instrument that they develop on their own. And then, yeah, we'll work as much as possible with the region to communicate at the level of the final recipient. Yeah, if I may say, a bit the difficulty that I see on the chat is the total investment amount. So what does that represent, in fact? So we had to add in the reporting obligation not only the loan amount but also the total investment amount, which means for a banking system, the total of the business plan. So if this column is, I think in terms of regulation, simplification of the regulation, it would have been much easier to say that is the total loan amount. Like that, the loan is covered by the guarantee. The total investment amount, only a portion of it is covered by the guarantee. So you can have a loan supported at 300,000 euro, but with a total investment amount of 600, and here you have to communicate.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Oban, and I think we shall certainly try and return to that point in the final Q&A at the end, because it's clearly an issue that's on the chat, and yeah, your comment is very clear. So thank you for that. That's great. So in fact, we should move on now. But thank you, Cecilia and Oban, and we will come back to you with the Q&A later on. So I'm sure we'll hear from you again. So let's move on to the second case study we wanted to share with you today, and this is from Latvia. I'm very pleased to introduce Christian Pudans, the head of the Marketing and Public Relations Department in the National Promotional Bank in Latvia, ALTUM. Christian, can you hear me? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Am I well heard?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
All right. Nice to see you guys. I will share our experience, how we communicate EU support to the public. I have three short stories. Hopefully they will be interesting. There is actually saying, if you remember at least three things from the presentation, then it was a good presentation. If you share it further, so it means it was, you also will remember stuff. And definitely encourage after the presentations, if you have any questions or would like to see any more materials, definitely come back. All right, but please show the video. Let's have a little bit fun. Hopefully the video won't slow down and will be visible. So let's start it.
Šī ēka atrodas Rīgā Ziepniekkalnā, Ozolciem ielā 18. To dēvē arī par lielo Ķīnas mūri. Ir jau arī iespējīgi liels 9 stāvu 11 kāpņu telpas ar kopējo ēkas garumu vairāk kā puskilometru. Kā jau visām padomu laika mājām, arī šai ir nepieciešama siltināšana. šīs mājas renovācija provizoriski varētu izmaksāt 4 miljonus eiro. Šis dāvinājums sastādītu pusi no kopējām projekta izmaksām. Tas nozīmē 2 miljonu eiro, kur iedzīvotājiem nebūtu jāatgriež. Pēc renovācijas viņi par šo naudu var aizmirst un vienkārši baudīt dzīvi garākā, lielākā mājā Latvijā. Ir saprotams, ka cilvēks šaubās, cilvēkiem ir jautājumi, bet skaidrs ir viens, ka visi vēlas dzīvot labāk un maksāt mazāk. Ja var norenovēt šo māju, tad jau var jebkuru.
Okay, thanks. Switch to the next slide, please. Yes, I will come back to this video shortly. It's one of the programs we communicated 6 years ago. We started 6 years ago, but you will hear the story very soon. But just very shortly about the ALTUM. We are the sort of development bank. We are not bank, definitely, but we are kind of development bank. We are a financial institution which definitely promotes EU funds, as well as supports different parts of society and businesses. All in all, we have more than 42 programs, support programs, stretching from support to households, insulation of houses, agriculture, social entrepreneurship, young entrepreneurs who are starting businesses, venture capital, families who are willing to buy houses, etc., etc. 42 programs, so a lot. And as you know, hopefully we are a small country located in northern part of the Europe. And Latvia is a small country, less than 2 million inhabitants, with a nice old town. However, and this is a short story about our first support program, is nearly 75% of our inhabitants live in Soviet-era buildings, which need to be insulated. And these installation of these buildings are being supported by EU funds. Click. And so this is the first story. When we wanted to start the program, it seemed this is a very fantastic support from EU when the 50% of insulation is supported by EU funds and only 50% should be covered by the bank loans. What could be easier than that? However, in the very beginning, it appeared it's a huge problem because to insulate the house, the inhabitants have to vote. And what we found out is then in 100% of the cases, the vote rate was below 67%, which means that basically the houses decide not to be insulated. Unfortunately, that was the very beginning. Click. Then we tried to understand what's the problem. We went into understanding the segments, and it appeared that of course there are people who are disengaged. Of course there are elderly people who are not willing to take the loans, but definitely the biggest problem were the tenants who are not interested in the insulation of houses, and definitely sofa experts, the guys who are sitting and just bitching about the problems and doing anything. So this was another problem, segmentation. Within the segments, we had some slight problems. Okay, click. And what we found out is also there is different audiences, and motivation for different audiences also work differently. For instance, the inhabitants generally were not very keen on insulation of the houses and generally about the energy efficiency. However, those who take care of houses were willing to do things, but they meet the resistance of the inhabitants. Click. And to promote the program, you only have 20,000 euros to become visible. So you see, these are the insights we got only when we started to communicate to the public, and only then we try to address the problem, how to hit the targets and convert the inhabitants. So click. And what we found out is, what is previously mentioned, is that energy efficiency was generally as a problem and challenge as a category. So the people were kind of reluctant to change their minds. And click. And what we started with, so we understood that those who are taking care of houses, municipalities and different service companies, they are willing to insulate the houses. But unfortunately, we were very much in the business not communicating EU funds, but starting to communicate the category as such to inhabitants, that houses should be insulated, that it's worth to take care of energy efficiency in long run, etc., etc. So in cooperation with those who are taking care of houses, we made posters and different print materials to distribute to inhabitants, stating that these houses are losing the heat and they are losing energy. And on the other part of the materials, we started to print the information about how much they could save if they insulate the houses. One of the very successful campaigns was this social experiment. We found an L-shaped house, which one part was insulated, another wasn't. And we invited journalists to demonstrate how the house, which is not insulated, is losing house, contrary to the house which is just insulated. And there was even a kind of a small gambling. What are the invoices for inhabitants in both of these houses? And there was a huge difference. And it really attracted the attention from the journalists. I would definitely suggest to play around with such social experiments. Click. And we also use some advertising in buses, so that the people, when they're traveling home, they see that information that their houses are losing the heat and energy. So take care of that. Click. And what appeared is that, unfortunately, as I previously mentioned, we had to explain generally about the installation process as such. Though we are a financial company, we started to play in the field explaining what the installation means, that there are no problems with the houses afterwards, etc., etc. What we found out also, in addition, that the inhabitants are very reluctant to insulate their houses because there are plenty of myths. For example, one of the myths says that if you insulate the house, then this house starts to rot from inside, and we had to address that as well. Imagine a financial company starts to explain that thing, but unfortunately we couldn't do differently, because to really absorb the financial support of EU, you have to teach the Latvian inhabitants. Click. And before started year 2024, which I'll come back in a second, in the very beginning I showed you one video. Is it possible to really insulate the Great China Wall? In Latvia, in Riga, we have one very, very long house, which is nearly 600 meters long. And it's called by inhabitants as a China Wall. And we made, again, another social experiment. We kind of made a bold statement publicly. Is it possible to insulate the China Wall with exclamation mark? And we made a big event inviting people from the whole district and to listen to pros and cons, what is the process, how to really insulate the house. And what happened is that, unfortunately, the house wasn't insulated. The inhabitants still voted against. We just missed one voice, but this was a huge public event, really well debated around, which actually caused and really pushed forward the agenda that other houses started to insulation process. And click. If we see that 2004 is absolutely different from the year 2016 when we started that. Nowadays, we don't explain anymore to the people that insulation is a good thing. We don't talk about building things, We are just telling the story. No, we are just working on absolutely different level. We are communicating with municipalities. Picture left up, there are heads of municipalities invited where we push forward the agenda that there are municipalities which are lacking behind others in terms of installation process. We have greatly improved our web pages where it's easy to go through even such uneasy process installation of houses where the people can click and see the process, how they can do that. We are still continuing to work with municipalities those who are taking care of houses in left down corner, organizing the seminars for people, and it really works. And nowadays we have also made one fantastic trilogy of documentaries about the people who have succeeded to live in better places. Most probably we'll skip that video because we are running out of time, so please make a double click. So that was the first case. The second case is, and this is absolutely a different case, is we also work with the bankers to promote the guarantees which are supporting the loans to the businesses. And the key word here is, this marketing approach is absolutely different. And the key word is engagement. Please click. The problem is that, for instance, when we approached the bankers also many years ago, we had a hypothesis that the guarantees are not used by the banks to promote the businesses, to encourage the businesses to take loans because the guarantees are expensive. And what we did is we kind of made a McKinsey-style research asking the bankers to test the hypothesis. Are our guarantees expensive, or are there some other problems which are not triggering the deals? And it happened that we made a kind of research where we tried to understand what are the factors which are really promoting cooperation between the bankers and ALTUM. And based on these factors, we try to evaluate what is our service. And it happened that the factors are absolutely different. It's not the price which are triggering non-response, but it's absolutely different thing. For instance, how the systems work, how the bankers are exchanging information with ALTUM, with contracts, how what is IT support to have these contracts finished, what is the pace of decision making, etc., etc. And then based on these evaluations, we immediately introduce the action plan, improving our services in those factors which are important, leaving the least important factors behind. So it was very much science-based improvement of proposition. Click. And based on that information, you can do 2 more clicks as well. Based on that operation, we found out that for bankers, it's important. For instance, nowadays, the factors change actually year by year. If you improve some factors, then the next factors are coming in. What we found out is the bankers are nowadays very much interested in fast teaching of new employees which are coming in so that they know about the guarantees and they can make transactions fast. Secondly, we are also sending regular updates about the guarantees, how we are progressing with selling them, and the bankers are being engaged with that one. And this the third picture which you see left down, it's a small trick which we do each single year. We always identify the best sellers from the banks who are selling the most guarantees and the biggest guarantee deals. And then we make a personalized letter from our president to presidents of these banks stating that we congratulate those guys who sold the most of guarantees and the biggest guarantees with the EU, which is basically supported by EU funds. Hence promoting businesses here in Latvia. And this works magically. The people who are getting these prizes are afterwards very proudly sharing that information on LinkedIn, stating that, yes, we are the most active sellers of EU guarantees, which are supported by EU funds. So this is the second proposition. And the third one, let's quickly go through that. Click. This is about social entrepreneurship, and to tell a short story about that, I would like you to read this small statement. It's kind of Winston Churchill saying, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, and courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. And that's how we do in a social entrepreneurship. It happens, again, the insight is that, please click. There's an insight. We have a fantastic Association of Social Entrepreneurship, Association of Social Entrepreneurs. Please click. Yes, and it happens that it doesn't make sense for us to be loud and speak about social entrepreneurship to everybody around, because if there is an association who does it much better, because they are uniting all these social entrepreneurships and they are very active in communicating their proposition, we are directly working with that association in order for them to do the job. Basically, we are supporting their big forum organized for social entrepreneurs, which is the billboard which you see on the left upper corner. And you see they are gathering on stage many people who are really into that business. And also in cooperation with that association, we have created a fantastic kind of traveling exhibition where we are promoting those beautiful businesses all around Latvia. And this association is traveling all over the Latvia, showcasing these fantastic cases about these social entrepreneurs who are really making good to their society. And all together with the association, we are also making some videos promoting the business. If you click once more, then it's kind of a last slide. This year we had another tranche of grants being given to Latvia to promote that business, social entrepreneurship business. In this case, we had this resource, PR agencies, which we organized a big event with the journalists opening this new grant program. And definitely the Social Entrepreneurship Association that appreciates very much. And of course, we showcase that new support being granted by European Union. And please don't make a double click so we don't see one more video because I'm running out of time. Yes, and just 4 principles which we are very much using when we are communicating our propositions. First is fit for purpose solutions. You see that the first one was very much communicating to the public and to stakeholders who are taking care of the houses. So there was absolutely different insights. So there was a problem with understanding the proposition, energy efficiency as such. The second case was very much communication with based on the science and analytics which we get from the researches, and directly addressing the bankers and improving the way how we are granting, working with guarantees. And the third case was absolutely different, where we working close cooperation with the association to promote the business in this particular group of society. So you see the approaches of marketing are absolutely different. And the keywords are the second point is this RACI model is when we always try to understand who is responsible, who is accountable, who should be communicated, and who should be informed. So very much a stakeholder approach before we go into any creative solutions. And third, most important thing is target and convert. We are not here to do nice ads or to be very creative. The only thing which is important really to target and convert, because we have 42 programs, very few money, and just 3 persons working on all these 42 support programs. And the last but not least, the resource constraints, which basically explains that you have to be very targeted and to work closely with the right segments, with the right stakeholders, with the right messages to really target and convert the audience. So that's basically from my side. Do apologize for running too long, but anyways, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
That's great. Thank you, Christian. I mean, really, really good presentation. 3 very different examples. And yeah, I like, as you describe it, your fit for purpose approach. We're going to move to our final Q&A session, but I know we have got a a question on the chat. So I'll hand over to Francisca, and yeah, over to you, Francisca.
No, yes, indeed, Christians. We have a question regarding, well, your communication strategy for the energy efficiency financial instruments for multi-apartment buildings. There's a question from Stefan asking, what was the ownership structure of the building? Did the apartments belong to private persons or a larger housing company? And also, what was the social structure of people in the building? Were they vulnerable groups, etc.? So if you could elaborate a bit on this, on your communication strategy given these factors.
Yes, these houses definitely belong to the private persons. There are some private persons who have established businesses in these houses as well, but we are not, in this program, we are not supporting businesses generally, but basically the kind of flat owners. And yeah, that's indeed a problem that in many houses there are very vulnerable people. Who are against the loans, who can't take the loans, etc., etc. I must admit, this is a social problem generally, but at the same time, in terms of funds we have available, you know, it doesn't mean that we have to convert all the inhabitants so that all people live in renovated houses. It means that it's always constraint of the money available. So as long as the program generally converts, then the mission is accomplished. But of course, but in long term, it is a social problem. The good thing is that what I also said in the very beginning is that the mindset has very much switched. In the first program, when we try to explain what is energy efficiency, no, we don't do that. We explain the financial benefits and how to finances easy and how to go through the process of your insulation fast. This is our main objectives nowadays. Have I answered the question?
Yes, thank you very much, Christians. We will now then, it was a very comprehensive answer, and we will now move on to the final Q&A session. And once again, we would encourage you to send in any questions you may have on the presentations or on the topic of today's webinar via the chat function. And perhaps we could start with a question regarding regarding in the case, given that for DG Région colleagues, given that audit authorities and MAs are not allowed to go on the spot, how can you ensure the compliance with the requirements for visibility in communication? Should an obligation be imposed on the holding fund to collect evidence? I don't know if any of the DG colleagues.
Yes. So there is no obligation according to the CPR rules for the bodies implementing the holding fund or a specific fund to go on the spot at the level of final recipients. According to the CPR, the only obligation in Article 52 is to ensure that the contractual arrangements include such requirements. So in the contract between the bodies implementing our financial instruments and the final recipients, there must be these requirements on visibility stipulated. But there is no obligation.
Yeah. But so in other terms, if we see a holding fund which collects evidence, we will consider it to be gold plating. We'll consider it to be gold plating. It will be too much to require for all of this investment to collect proof that the publicity requirements were indeed complied with. The obligation is to ensure that in contractual terms, this is in. It's not to collect evidence that this has been respected, especially to collect at the level of holding fund.
Good. Thank you very much, colleagues. And perhaps, Cécile, moving to you, how did you, for Foster, ensure the compliance with the communication and visibility requirements for your financial instruments?
Sure. For the moment, we try to collect evidence from the final recipients. So we asked, we first check on the annual report from EIF to know who are the final recipients that must deploy these posters and information on the website, and then we plan to send follow-up notification and to collect evidence from the obligations on the site. We don't have any feedback for the moment because the portfolio has just been launched in 2024. So this will be the next point, but that's the plan we should implement at the Région Occitanie.
Thank you, Cécile. And could you elaborate a bit on how you coordinated your communication and visibility activities with the banking institutions implementing FOSTER?
Just maybe to recall a bit what we say in introduction, I think is a cascade down from the EIF to the final recipient. So to reply a bit, to complement a bit the answer of Cécile, is that we receive the construction of the portfolio on a regular basis. In the annual report, we will send the individual list of beneficiary, final recipient, and we highlight for the region the one with the total investment amount exceeding 500,000 euro. And after, this is the region who would like to do a bit more in terms of communication with this type of beneficiary. Okay. This, I think, it has to be clear between us on this. And after, to ensure the communication with, if I can take the question, if we the communication with intermediaries, again, in the operational agreement between the whole fund manager and the selected intermediaries, there is a clear article regarding visibility in line with the regulation. Okay, so based on this, we have a regular meeting again with the intermediary. For instance, for the website obligation, we look at the website, the first draft, and after we approve it, and they have a dedicated now page linked to this particular instrument with, as we indicated before, the main feature of the instrument, the main advantage for the entrepreneur, and the logo of the EU, of course, the region, and the contact where the entrepreneur can reach out to the banks if he is in need of access to finance.
Thank you very much, Aubin.
They also have the dedicated website. Everything is on the website. So this is a real toolbox that they have a very clear access for everybody, beneficiaries, intermediaries, or final recipients. It's for everybody.
Thank you, Cécile, for adding that. And there are lots of questions on the chat. It seems that a lot of our participants are interested on the physical elements of the visibility and communication activities. We have a question, perhaps DG Région colleagues can take over, regarding is there a proportionality principle when thinking of billboards, posters, plaques, these physical elements?
As I have mentioned in the presentation, indeed, the proportionality principle, we advise that this principle is applied when the contract is concluded between the financial intermediary and the final recipient. So it's very important. what are the provisions that are going to be included in these contracts, because if the at that moment this proportionality principle should be sort of negotiated, because if the both parties, the financial intermediary and the final recipients, they know already at that stage what would be the proportion that the physical investment would represent in the total operation, then they can already adapt the requirements depending on this on the proportionality principle. So we will not we should not ask for a billboard in case the investment represent a very small portion of the total operation. So it's the regulation doesn't say more about that. It's up to the two parties to find the right trade-off between the requirements, the obligations, and the reality, the amount that the investment will represent in the total operation. So indeed, the proportionality principle we advise to be applied at that moment in the contractual arrangements.
Thank you very much, Dana. And we also had a question in the beginning of the session regarding what information should be on the billboard at the level of the final recipient. Perhaps if you could elaborate a bit on whether it varies or not.
If I can, well, I want to also refer to Karin and to the toolkits that she referred to in the beginning of her presentation that are available on websites. There is one of these toolkits is a very detailed description on what billboards, how they should look, what elements should be there, and plaques, posters, everything there is described with technicalities and measurements and all that. So I think they are very good tools, and they are open for and available for everybody to consult. So Karin, if you're still there and you want to elaborate a bit on these tools.
Yes, hello. I'm here. Yes, hello, I'm staying here. I heard you, Natalie, thank you. Well, not too, but I could send the link in the chat and then you could see it and then you can go in and check for yourself, because as Natalie said, it's quite straightforward. You have link, you can play around yourself and check. So I think the easiest is that I post a link, and if you have any questions, there's also contact details, and then you just come back to us like this. Thank you.
Fantastic, Karin. Thank you all very much for your questions. Unfortunately, we won't have enough time to cover them all today, but we will try to see how to address them in the future.
A slight comment here, please. We are talking about entrepreneurs. So the entrepreneur doesn't have too many times to go to the website and so on and so on. So what we did with the region Occitanie, we tried to develop A3, but super simple. So the guy click on it, he print it out, he post it on this company, and that's it. Full stop. There is no much discussion to have to go there to download this and this and this. He has no time. He doesn't care. You know, so the first approach compared to the previous programming period is to have a step ahead, saying that before we were communicating only at the intermediary level. Now we go a bit further for type of project, a bit with a business plan exceeding 500K. But he has to be super simple for the entrepreneur. We visited 2 entrepreneurs 2 weeks ago. The region send them the guidelines. The guy printed out, he posted it on his enterprise, and it was visible for everybody, for all these customers and so on. But that's it, huh? Okay, so the logo of the EU, the logo of the region, the name of the facility, and the fact that it has been supported through ERDF and regional resources.
Yes,
I think it has to be very pragmatic, because here we are talking about an entrepreneur who I think is going to have a bit of, it's not a grant, huh? is not a grant. He has to repay with an interest. Okay, the interest is a bit reduced and we don't ask any kind of collateral, but still, it's not a grant.
Colleagues, thank you very much. We will really have, Cecile, apologies, but we really have to conclude. We are reaching the end of our time, but thank you very much for your interventions. Nathalie, I believe you would like to have a final word.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much to the almost 400, or even at a certain moment more than 400 participants who stuck with us through this webinar. I think main conclusion is we have touched upon a topic that lives, that is not entirely clear and as straightforward as we might think. There are still a lot of questions that we haven't been able to cover. We will go back to them, but I think we can also conclude that this is only the start of a trajectory towards more guidance and more exchange of practices. One of the goals, at least for me personally, of this webinar was also to have a bit of a touch and feel with people on what kind of questions and how many questions there were. It's obvious that there are plenty, and we've tried to cover a couple of them and a couple of topics and clarify as much as possible, but I think we haven't we haven't touched everything. So yeah, I think to be continued, to say the least, in a different format or in a similar format, but I think you will hear from us in the very near future.
Thank you very much, Nathalie, for that. And I would like to thank you all once again for your participation in today's webinar and for all the interest.